So, distinguished delegates, esteemed colleagues and friends, I have a privilege to welcome you to this pivotal session at COP30. We stand at a crossroads in the global energy transition. Green hydrogen is no longer a distant promise. It's a present opportunity that we will demonstrate to you today. It's a critical lever for achieving net zero emission, decarbonizing hard-to-abate sectors, and delivering a just, inclusive energy future. Our work builds directly on the momentum of the COP29 Green Hydrogen Declaration and the 24/7 Carbon-Free Energy Compact. These frameworks have set a bold vision to accelerate the deployment of green hydrogen and ensure that clean energy is available everywhere and all time. The Green Hydrogen Task Force was launched at COP29 under the 24/7 Carbon-Free Energy Compact, co-led by both the SEforALL and the Council of Engineers for the Energy Transition to the UN Secretary General. Our mission is clear: to identify actionable short-term solutions that unlock green hydrogen markets, especially across the global south. We are guided by the principles of inclusivity, innovation, and urgency. Our recommendations are designed to support the ambitions of COP29 and the Compact, making green hydrogen a cornerstone of the 24/7 carbon-free energy systems worldwide. Let me share the core findings and 7 actionable recommendations from our task force, developed in consultation with policymakers, financiers, technical experts, and private sector leaders. Each recommendation is designed to address a specific barrier and to unlock rapid progress. We also structured these 7 recommendations into 3 main sections. The first one, with 3 recommendations, will focus on how we create the market in the very short term. The second one, the technical recommendation, will focus on how we lower the CapEx to contribute to optimizing the levelized cost of hydrogen derivatives. And the 3 other ones that I appreciate the more is how we can today reduce the cost of green derivatives to be competitive with biomolecules and even close to gray molecules based on the current technology. And for us in the task force, we believe that it's a disruptive approach and recommendation that need to be looked more in details to explore how we can implement them. So let's start by how we create the market through regulatory recommendations, with 3 recommendations. The first one is to stimulate the demand and investment through auctions and sustainable public procurement. Green hydrogen deployment faces 2 critical challenges: the high production costs and uncertain demand. Competitive auctions and sustainable public procurement are powerful tools to address both. By awarding contracts to the lowest cost producers, auctions drive down prices and create predictable demand. The EU Hydrogen Bank pilot auction, for example, awarded 720 million euros to 7 projects in 2024, setting a benchmark for transparency and cost efficiency. In Africa, Namibia is pioneer auctions-based support for green hydrogen. Also, governments can create early demand by mandating the use of green hydrogen in public infrastructure, transport, and construction. Procurement frameworks should include sustainability criteria, carbon intensity, certification, and local content to ensure the impact. Scaling up these instruments, expanding budgets, and harmonizing standards will accelerate deployment and support industrial decarbonization. The second lever is introduce binding mandates to accelerate fossil fuel phase-outs. To create a predictable market for green hydrogen, we must move beyond voluntary targets to binding mandates and clear phase-out times for fossil-based technologies. Legally enforceable quotas for green hydrogen use in sectors like shipping, aviation, and steel provide certainty for investors and developers. The EU's Refuel EU Aviation and Fuel EU Maritime regulations are leading example, setting a minimum quotas for sustainable fuels. The IMO aimed to implement GHG reduction targets and mandates to accelerate decarbonization in the maritime sector. These measures were expected to provide clear compliance pathways, encourage investment in low-carbon technologies, and build market confidence. Similarly, hydrogen standards and globally harmonized certification schemes can deliver international compatibility and accelerate adoption. Setting clear deadlines for transition sends a strong signal to the market, redirecting investment toward green solutions. These regulatory tools accelerate sectoral decarbonization, reduce investor certainty, and drive innovation. The third and the last recommendation within the regulatory section is the grandfathering policies and global certification standards. Green hydrogen projects are long-term investments that require stable policy environments. Grandfathering provisions ensure that projects retain the regulatory conditions in place at the time of the financial close or permitting, protecting investors from disruptive policy changes. By honoring the policy regime applicable when a project breaks ground, means the grandfathering, governments can de-risk investment and encourage early movers. Also, harmonized certification schemes are essential for market access and premium pricing. Standards for composition, purity, safety, storage, and transport build confidence and enable cross-border trade. When it comes to the technical recommendation to lower the capex, we propose to lower costs through modularization. Most green hydrogen projects today are custom built, leading to high costs and long-term timeline and high costs of construction, mostly in remote areas. Modularization using standardized factory-built systems can transform the sector. Pre-integrated units combining renewables, electrolysis, and storage reduce engineering complexity and allow parallel workflows. So the modularization shortens construction time, improves quality and safety, and enables mass productions. Lessons learned from solar and battery industry show how modularity drives innovation and cost reduction. This approach supports faster time to market, supply chain resilience, and domestic manufacturing growth. And now I move to the last three sections who are really disruptive and helping to lower the costs down of the green hydrogen derivatives and even make them competitive with biomolecules and close to gray molecules. So the first one is that we need first to relax the Howry matching and carbon capture and usage constraints. The current regulatory landscape, particularly in Europe, mandates strict Howry matching between renewable electricity generation and electrolyzer operation starting in 2030. While this ensures temporal correlation and system integrity, it imposes significant constraints on project efficiency and cost effectiveness. I don't know any industrial facility in the world which is making benefits and being closed for months a year. And this is what is happening with the Howry matching. So by introducing a flexible matching scheme that requires a minimum of 70% Howry matching, while allowing a yearly matching for the remaining 30%, we can increase electrolyzer utilization from 70% to almost 100%, maximizing asset efficiency. We can reduce the renewable energy curtailment, improving overall system performance. We can avoid excessive hydrogen storage investments, lowering infrastructure costs, and we can reduce the levelized cost of hydrogen and its derivatives by at least, and it's a conservative figure, 25 to 30%. Based on the current technology and based on comparative analysis of Howry vs annual matching schemes. Additionally, Relaxing the CO2 sourcing constraints by 2050 could significantly improve the economics of e-fuels, helping them compete with biofuels and even being very close to fossil-based fuels. So the overall impact with the CO2 and the area matching relax should be between 30 to 45% reduction in the cost of the green hydrogen derivative, and this is a conservative figures. The second recommendation is optimizing depreciation and risk allocation to unlock cost-effective green hydrogen derivative. So green hydrogen derivatives such as e-methanol, e-ammonia, e-SAF, and green steel require large-scale infrastructure with long technical lifespans. However, current projects financing models often force rapid capital recovery, aligning asset depreciation with short offtake agreements means 10 to 12 years, which inflates production costs and undermines projects' bankability. If residual value guarantees are provided, ideally by producing countries or through international alliance, and also by shareholders' balance sheets, banks can accept longer depreciation schedules for long-lived assets with much lower interest rates. This enables refinancing after the first offtake period or a transition to the spot market. A BOOT scheme can be implemented where the developer operates the asset during the first offtake period and then either exercises its rights to refinance and extend the operations for another 10 to 15 years, or transfer the asset to the host country with a high level of performance that is close to 99%. So the key impact is that by extending the depreciation of renewable and downstream assets from 10 to 30 years, combined with residual value guarantees and refinancing mechanism, we can reduce the levelized cost of green hydrogen derivative by again at least 30 to 40% during the first offtake period, which then is also disruptive for the modelization. And the last one, but not the least, and we just discussed that together, is how we can unlock competitive green hydrogen through concessional financing in developing countries. So access to concessional financing can significantly reduce the cost of green hydrogen projects in developing countries, where commercial financing is often prohibitively expensive. For capital-intensive green hydrogen projects, financing costs can represent 25 to 40% of the total cost, and we are not inventing anything. It's coming from the renewables, these figures. So if these projects gain access to concessional financing through development banks, climate funds, or blended finance mechanism, the cost of capital can be significantly reduced. Drawing from best practices from renewable energy, concessional financing can cut financing costs by up to 50%, which translates into a 12 to 20% reduction in the total cost of green hydrogen molecules, and this is math also. So the key impact here is that more projects could reach financial close in emerging markets, and that producing countries can offer lower cost green hydrogen derivative to the global market. In conclusion, let me say that the green hydrogen sector stands at a pivotal moment. With the right mix of policy, technical, and financial instruments, green hydrogen can become cost competitive and scalable across regions and sectors. If all the 7 recommendations are implemented, the cost of hydrogen derivative could be reduced by at least 2/3. Today, based on the current technology, depending on the project, of course, on project location, scale, and financing structure. Market demand for green hydrogen and its derivative could grow 5 to 10-fold by 2035, driven by mandates, procurement, and harmonized certification. So together, these measures form a coherent strategy to de-risk investment, scale production, and build resilient green hydrogen value chains, making green hydrogen a key enabler of a 24/7 carbon-free energy system globally. So I launch here a call that we need to seize this moment to translate this recommendation and these ambitions into actions and work on concrete projects to show and to demonstrate that it's possible to compete with current biomolecule and green molecule and deliver on the promise on a just energy transition. Thank you all for your patience and listening. So now it's my honor to introduce our distinguished panel who will share their perspective on unlocking green hydrogen for the 24/7 carbon-free energy. And we are joined by Vimal Mahendru, Vice President and Special Envoy for the UN SDG International Electrochemical Commission, EIC. Maybe you can say a rapid word. There is a button here. You need to put it.
Oh, this works. Thank you very much. Namaste, bonjour. Good to see you here. IEC, I don't know how many of you are familiar with it. It's perhaps one of the oldest organizations participating here. It's about 120 years old, but we are a bunch of very geekish engineers who are great at writing standards, technical standards, voltages, definition of voltages, the technical aspects of millimeters and nanometers going from here to there. And we've been doing this for 120 years. Today, almost everything you see around you, anything that uses electricity, electronics, or software actually is based on IEC standards. So if you're carrying a mobile phone, or some of you I see laptops, each one of them has about 100 IEC standards embedded into them. So we've been around for quite some time doing the same work, and we are delighted to be invited to this panel to talk about the IEC work on standards for green hydrogen. I'm happy to contribute as we go along. Thank you.
Thank you, Vimal. I introduce now Ricardo Gorini, sorry, who is the head of Renewable Energy Map at the Arena. Please, could you introduce yourself in 1 minute?
Thank you very much. First of all, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and to share this honorable panel. So yeah, Ricardo Gorini from IDENA. IDENA, for those that are not aware, is the International Renewable Energy Agency. So we have countries as member states, 170 plus countries. And of course, this important topic is one of our key topics to discuss, and happy to be here. Yeah, thank you.
We are honored also. I present you now Simran Sinha, which is Program Officer at the Green Hydrogen Organization, GH2. Welcome.
Am I audible? Thank you so much. Thanks, Ali, and thank you to all the panelists. Great to be here. I am Simran. I work as a program officer with the Green Hydrogen Organization. We are not that old. This is my second COP and fourth COP for the organization itself. We are a Swiss not-for-profit launched around Glasgow COP in 2021. We basically are working towards accelerating the use, production of green hydrogen in these different sectors. Since the year 2025, when things started to slow down, the three sectors that we mainly focus on is fertilizer, iron and steel, and shipping. That's where we're seeing the green hydrogen flowing towards. Apart from that, we also work on standards and certification, working mostly in Global South. We run two alliances, one in Africa, which is, it's called AGA, Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance, which is 12 countries strong and is based in Cairo. where we also run something called the GH2 International Center of Excellence together with the Egyptian government. It was launched 2 years ago by the Prime Minister of Egypt, and I also serve as the interim director for that Center of Excellence. And maybe I'll talk more about what we're doing through that center, especially on concessional finance later. We also work a lot in APAC, another alliance we have in APAC with Japan, Korea, Australia, Indonesia, and then we also have national chapters, in particular in India and China, saying that most of the traction is coming out for green hydrogen from these two big countries. Happy to contribute as we go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. And now, last but not least, let me introduce Riyad Meder, who is the director of the Sustainable Energy Hub at the UNDP. He's joining us virtually. Are you here?
Yes. Yes, I'm here and joining you virtually. Do you hear me?
We hear you, but we don't see you. Now we see you. You're handsome.
You see me. Good. Thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure joining you online and discussing with you about green hydrogen. We just launched with Tide Oxford University a great publication on how do we see the future of green hydrogen in the global south. So I'm leading the Sustainable Energy Hub of UNDP, which is the engine of sustainable energy for development in United Nations Development Program, where we cover 131 countries on energy, 298 projects, a portfolio of $4.1 billion currently. And we're focusing on three main areas. One is the thought leadership and what we're going to discuss today on hydrogen and development. The second one is on how do we use digital intelligence in a way to accelerate the energy transition. And the third is at the end, you need a market development to be able to realize that. All that in response to the UN pledge of 500 million people that need to have access by 2030 to electricity and 1 billion to clean cooking. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Riyad. So I invite you all to explore the pathways, partnership, and innovations needed to realize the promise of green hydrogen, as you mentioned, all of you. And I encourage also all the participants here to engage actively, ask questions, and challenge assumptions. We want it to be an interactive panel, and the solutions we seek require collaboration across sectors, regions, and disciplines. So let me start with the first question to Vimel. So my first question to you is that given that the IEEC is an international standard setting organization that brings together, I think, 170 countries, if I'm not wrong, and more than 30,000 experts for standardization of various technologies, how do you see international standards shaping the green hydrogen economy? In particular, how can harmonized standards help developing countries build credibility, attract investment, and integrate into the regional and global value chain, also to de-risk the projects in terms of certification and standards?
I see that as three questions, so let me try and put it together. And let me try and answer it at two levels.
So
one is the...
You're lucky if I did not ask 5 questions.
Yes. So let me try and answer it in two levels. One is the way IEC works on standards and standardization. The 170 countries that are members of IEC, they make proposals to IEC. The moment we see minimum 5 member countries coming together and saying, yes, we need the standard, that's when the standardization process starts. That's the technical answer to the question you have posed. So I'm really excited about it. We're looking forward to writing those standards. Some work has already begun where some proposals have come in. And one of the first proposals that has come to us is about safety. IEC also has conformity assessment programs, which are for hydrogen safety during its storage, production, transportation, usage. So because it can be explosive. So that's where IEC work is already there. And if you're interested, just go to the IEC website, iec.ch, and you'll find a whole lot of information on that aspect. When it comes to production of hydrogen itself, that work is still going on. It's not a complete catalog as yet because it's still seen as a bit of an innovation. My personal view, and this is related to the second part of your question, which is about developing economies and the SME sector. How do we get them involved or energized, pun intended, about hydrogen? I think my experience from India is that the operative word is green. As long as we are creating green molecules, yes, that's where the developing economies are going. From our work and my personal visits to several of the global South nations, we've seen that there is a bit of a struggle right now to even produce green, to green their energy mix presently. So going from green electricity to green hydrogen, I think, is still a bit of a journey that developing economies are taking. From your report that you just presented, I feel excited that perhaps this is the way to go, and we are going to see a lot more excitement around this. But I think for developing economies, especially, it's a journey that will continue for some time before they are really on to green hydrogen. Thank you.
Indeed, there is a debate on that.
Yes,
yeah.
we really need a debate, and I need to learn a lot more about this. You know, bear in mind what I said. I'm still an engineer. We are great at writing standards. So one of the purposes that I'm here is to learn more about what's going on and reflect it back to our organization.
Thank you. My belief is that today the developing countries are able to produce green molecules based on green hydrogen. Most of the technologies are coming from the developed countries. These are investments that we need to attract. And I think that you also addressed that we need to de-risk the standards and the certificates in order to allow this cross-trade between regions and countries, which brings me also that for that, there need to be a market, whether locally or abroad. And I turn to Ricardo. So Ricardo, in this regard, ARENA's renewable energy map program shows how auctions and blending mandates can create early demand for green hydrogen and green hydrogen derivative, which is for me more important than just green hydrogen. From this experience, which approach are you working best? Are working best for developing countries, according to you?
Thank you. Let me start with a key message. We need all and everything if you want to go to really net zero or acceleration of what we could say energy transition. So that's why we need an integrated energy approach. And this is what we are doing in IRENA. So when we do the roadmaps, we assess all the different sectors as well, all the options in terms of supply. Of course, we are trying to decarbonize, so we consider technology that are related to that. Why I'm saying that? Because it's important to understand when I say that we need all and everything. Hydrogen and derivatives are key. Without that, we are not going to go to this 1.5. I think this is not an option. We need to go and make it happen. So this is one important aspect that we like to bring. In our numbers, just two numbers here. One is the global number where we have the World Energy Transition Outlook. In 2050, around 10 to 12% we would like to see hydrogen and derivatives. So sustainable fuels in general, including biofuels here, it's more than 20%. So this is a really huge market that we need to develop. No? We understand there is not such really a competition between those sources. They must be together, addressing different markets, different niches. And this is also an interesting perspective that we have in our roadmaps. Of course, in terms of the demand, this is across the globe. We have also, and we just released here in the COP, the South America Energy Transition Outlook, where we see the importance of sustainable fuels and particularly also hydrogen in the region. So numbers around 22 megatons by 2050. So by starting with that, I would like to bring also some examples from, let's say, different other sectors. Here in Brazil, not sure if you know, but there is a very good tradition on sustainable fuels, particularly the biofuel markets. And looking at the history of what has happened in Brazil, we have a lot of good insights in terms of how to develop such kind of markets in a kind of developing country. Those that are probably taking cars here, you may know that there is probably 50% ethanol embedded in the car. And this was due to a program that we have here in Brazil, which is a mandate. So here, one of the recommendations, that blends 27% of the biofuels in cars. So this was very effective. This program started back to the 80s. So we progressively started to use the mandates. Why this is important? Permanent policy, transparency, clear indication of what is needed. So for that, we need really a plan, energy planning that sets the goals and the instrument, as I said, the mandate. So it's a permanent process that is established. Without this indication, then those cost of capitals will be, still high. So this is the first lesson that we have from the Brazilian case and could be well applied in developing countries. So set clear processes, clear mandates. Also, as part of this, we have, in the case of the production here, a very good setting where we have the Brazilian National Developing Bank, so the funding. And to develop this, together with the planning process, there was a de-risking element where each one of the project finance type of approach, where you see the risking, each one of the elements. You mentioned the construction, but there are others. So this is one of the recommendations. As a country, if you want to establish such kind of program, go through together with the private sector funding, identify all these elements of risks, and then go through and implement strong policy and regulation to address each one of them. I think that's also another key element to develop the market. And particularly with that, the cost of capital, we have similar numbers, it decreased 50% plus. So it's a joint effort together, government, financial institutions, developing this framework that will allow the penetration. I would like to also mention, in this case, we have a paper that we developed together with the BNDES, Brazilian Development National Bank. So I recommend also all of you to download. It was applied for the case of power sector, but is completely applicable to what we are discussing here, where we address all the elements. In that context, just to finalize this first part, it must be a clear rationale behind the development of the market. Of course, we can bring the rationale that is related to the decarbonization needs, as I said, but as well as a national policy or maybe even regional policy, we should also address other motivations. For instance, energy security elements. We could also consider the benefits of local production, job creation. It's a combination of elements that will really make the case. Of course, research and development as part of the innovative approach that was discussed here. There is also the availability of resources, cost competitive resources that could really make the case. For instance, as well, if you have renewables, capacity renewables, gigawatts that are very competitive, you can really make a very good case for production of hydrogen and derivatives. And that's basically a message that this market needs to be created with a clear motivation, with clear processes and rules, joint combination, private sector, governance, developing hand in hand over time is not a one short approach. You need really to go, you know, like a marriage for a couple of years at least, or decades better, and then the market will be well established. Yeah, so thank you for that, and happy to discuss further.
So I think you did a better job than me, because it took you just 5 minutes to summarize all what we made in the brief. So I completely agree. You described again all the framework, and you also highlighted the need of reducing the cost of capital through the cost of financing, and which makes a good transition to Simran. And I have a question for you, Simran. So the concessional and blended finance are key to bringing down the cost of capital for early hydrogen projects in the Global South. This is what was discussed and mentioned by Ricardo also. How can GH2 and its partners help to structure this mechanism? And what lessons can we take from the renewables financing to make hydrogen investable at scale as well?
Thank you so much, Ali. And just building on what Ricardo just said, maybe I'll start with, there are 3 things that I want to talk about. The first thing is definitely like policy certainty. The reason why I mentioned where GH2 kind of switched in 2025 towards these 3 sectors is that we started to see a lot of certainty around these sectors that can be decarbonized. So it already gives the DFIs a lot of confidence when they know that this green hydrogen project is kind of built in a national strategy. That's obvious, but also say connected to green fertilizer offtake, or steel or iron at the end of the day, or it will be used to create to basically have the green ammonia put into a ship and then sailing from no problem from Singapore. So that's the first thing. The second thing, and this is where what GH2 is doing can also come into picture. As I mentioned, we have a center of excellence in Cairo, GH2 International Center of Excellence, which we run together with the Egyptian government and Nile University, which is our local partners. And in the past 2 years of its establishment, we've done a lot of work, in particular for the MENA region. So when Ricardo, you were mentioning a lot about the Brazilian example, maybe I'll travel a little bit further and take the biased MENA example for me. We did a recent forum just 2 months ago in Cairo on a regional forum on financing renewables, green hydrogen, and ammonia. And shocking, but not shocking as well at the end of the day, the 2 main things that came out of the forum, and this is where we're also going to keep on working towards in the coming months, is cost of capital, lowering the cost of capital. That's where your last recommendation on concessional finance comes into play. And the second one was shared infrastructure. And I think that connects to your other recommendation that we've put forward in the brief on the depreciation and optimizing that. So on the cost of capital and concessional finance playing together, I think it's all about these DFIs coming forward and absorbing the first loss risk, and then the others coming into picture. And I think another thing that we learned from the forum itself was concessional finance is there, but you need to sequence it really, really well. And this is something that we can learn has happened with the renewable energy sector as well. So first, the DFIs, they come into the picture. They kind of take the risk with, say, permitting or planning or transmission. Then the government comes in with some back guarantees, and then that paves the way for private capital, commercial debt, and equity to come into picture. It has worked in the case of India with solar power plants and all these parks. It has worked a lot in Morocco. If you take the example of Noor Solar Project, World Bank came in, then the government gave guarantee, and then the commercial private players came into picture, and it's a big win. So that's the first thing on concessional capital. And then the second one, I'll come back to shared infrastructure and pick up on the point that we have in the issue brief, which is BOOT, build, own, operate, and then transfer. Again, I'll take a little bias towards the Egypt example every now and then. The example of SE zones. So basically, there's a big mismatch. The renewable energy assets, 25 to 30 years. Electrolyzers, 15 years. We have it in the brief. So the offtakes are really, really short, and it becomes really expensive. So there's a huge scope for having these desalination projects, transport, pipeline, grids, all of these shared, and then you operate it at least till the end of the, say, first offtake agreement, and then you either decide to refinance it or just give it away. So that's something also that can lower the cost of capital, and I think it's happening. I will go to India. I come from India. With the green fertilizer project, with these auctions, I think the government has played a role, but you should also take into account the kind of shared infrastructure that is being built around the ports for these fertilizer projects. And at the end of the day, we have a few friends who've done a couple of research, in particular for these green ammonia auctions in India. And they came up with a number that at the end of the day, the government is basically just using close to 1 to 5% of the larger fertilizer subsidy bill that India has when it imports to make green fertilizer in India. So we see that it is happening for sure. But I also want to reiterate what Ricardo mentioned, that it's not a marriage. So it has to be tailored for country by country. And just yesterday at one of the sessions in the MDB pavilion, we heard someone from South Africa say that when these DFIs, the MDBs, they work, they create strategies sitting in their headquarters. And then by the time it comes to a country like Egypt or Morocco, it kind of fades away. So you need to give the country that platform and then ask them what they need, like a wish list, and then work from there. So, yeah.
So thank you, Simran, because it was well summarized that to activate this capital finance, cost of financing to be lowered, and also the shared infrastructure, we need an institutional support in these countries to make it happen, which brings me to Riyadh, and then to ask him, according to what's just said Simran, Riyadh, so the institutional readiness is key for scaling the green hydrogen market. So how is UNDP supporting regions and countries to strengthen their governance and capacity to take advantage of this opportunity?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your question. I really enjoyed what was said previously by my different panelists. Let me begin with a question that increasingly guide our conversation with government and what we are doing as UNDP. Are our institutions, as you ask, ready to govern the green hydrogen transition, or will the transition govern us? And that is a very fundamental question. Hydrogen has captured the global momentum, as you made it in your introduction. Since 2020, it has appeared more than 60,000 headlines and over 50 countries, and they have released hydrogen strategies. But yet, by 2023, although 4.3 gigawatts of green hydrogen capacity had been announced, only 0.3 gigawatt, 7% were built. This is the reality. And this CAP is not about renewable potential. It is about governance. It is about planning. It is about institutional readiness, as you ask in your question. Is this viable, sustainable energy solution? Is, for me, the most important question, is it just a hype? Does it work for all the countries? Or could it be useful push for some economies, but no others? First, green hydrogen, for me, represents a powerful opportunity for inclusive development, but only if it is anchored in national priorities and local creation. Producing 1 kilogram of hydrogen requires 9 liters of purified waters. And a 1 million ton project can require 30,000 hectares of solar installation. An area almost 4 times than the size of Belém where you are all sitting. With the right governance, this investment can be immense opportunity to address hard-to-abate sector, catalyze local manufacturing, strengthening energy security, and generate long-term prosperity. So green hydrogen can be a tool for sustainable development, but not a substitute to it. And that is very important. My second point, it is that green hydrogen can reinforce environmental resilience only if country can plan carefully. Consider the case of Namibia, a country endowed with world-class renewable resources, but also one of the most water-scaled nation on the continent. A 2 million ton export project could consume 18 million cubic meters of water annually. 18 million cubic waters. Enough for 250,000 people in a country already using more than 80% of its fresh water each year. Only with strong institutions, smart water management, and the right technology, Namibia can turn its world-class renewable into a model for sustainable industrialization. Finally, my third point. It is true that green hydrogen offers new opportunities for economic diversification and regional leadership, but only if countries design it to serve local development. So the opportunity for the global south could be enormous, but if we still continue looking at green hydrogen for export, it will widen development gaps rather than close them. So the question is not whether green hydrogen will grow. It will. The question is whether countries will harness it to advance their own development vision. And now our recent publication, as I mentioned in my introduction, Navigating the Green Hydrogen Current, together with Tide Oxford, lays out how People, Planet, Prosperity Framework aims to redefine what just development aligned hydrogen economy should look like. And a country with limited land area may not be able to produce hydrogen, and neither would a country with extreme water insecurity. Yet we've seen cases where this does happen. And the challenge here is that we're seeing MOUs for hydrogen production in the global south, but mainly with companies from the global north and mainly for export. And in certain cases, electrification may offer faster, cheaper, and more environmentally responsible and inclusive alternative in many contexts. And this is exactly where UNDP is engaged, helping government build the institutions, policies, but also capabilities needed to turn hydrogen from a global trend into a national opportunity, one that supports people, strengthen ecosystem, and drive shared prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is music to my ears. And I agree that green hydrogen ecosystem should first benefit to the local population. I think that you mentioned Africa. Some countries are lacking energy. There is a lot of curtailed energy in the green hydrogen system that could benefit to the local population. Water scarcity. Most of the projects are relying on desalination water. It doesn't represent more than 1% of the final cost. So what I like is that I see many countries asking to double this water desalination, that it benefits also to the local population and address the scarcity. And now I'm going for a second round of questions, and I will ask you to stick into 2 minutes because I'm also the timekeeper here. And so what is interesting is what Riyad said also is that it's always oriented toward export. So I wanted to ask you, Vimal, that in terms of standards and certification, we see that most of the production is driven by the certification from the importing countries. How the exporting countries, the producing countries, which are mainly from the south, could partner with these importing countries to have like a win-win standards that could address the interests of all parties?
I think you mentioned the right phrase, win-win. And a win-win requires both parties to be at the table and having equal voice. The good thing is that the IEC platform for standards and conformity assessment program development has that each country has one vote. Nobody has multiple votes. It's not based on your GDP. It's not anything else, but every country has one vote. As a result, the number of countries sitting around the table to develop a standard will be able to do it. The challenge I have seen is that many developing economies are passive contributors, which means they're not participating in the standards development process, but whatever is developed, they are willing to accept. This is a problem where I think to create a win-win, we need to have everyone sitting there to contribute to the use case, to the application, to the development of the standard. If you're not there, the standards development process will take into consideration only those voices which are part of that committee. I don't want to get too technical, but we have committees around different projects on standardization. Within hydrogen, there is a committee which is going to work on definitions related to green hydrogen. Imagine that the definition of green hydrogen is developed by only 20 countries, which may be developed or global north. Where do the rest of them contribute? So I think it's very critical to get your voice in. Come to the table. I can promise you that will make the biggest impact. Thank you.
Thank you. And so beyond that, there is also that is part of it, that the concern of the producing countries is larger than that. And Ricardo, I liked what you said in Arena. You are looking to the green hydrogen ecosystem like a global energy system, not only so. And there is kind of competition between the hydrogen or derivative production and the electricity production, especially in countries that have lack of energy access. How do you see that in Arena?
First is key to reinforce, I think we have a common understanding here in the panel, the role of this integrated energy planning. Without this approach, there is the possibility, which is to be avoided, to have projects that will destroy value. And this is very important not to happen, especially in developing countries. So we may say that at the regional level, there must be some kind of coordination. We cannot see, for instance, the case of South America, every single and each country trying to have a hub of hydrogen. I think this is very important. We really need a coordination where we can add value rather than destroy value. This is very important, especially if you really want to develop such kind of market, because otherwise this will cause issues and you need to be able to explain. And so we saw that in the past also in other cases. So we need to avoid that. This is a lessons learned. Second, if you as a politician need to decide to put some subsidies to start a new market, I would like to reiterate here the motivations, right? So there must be motivation for that beyond the case of decarbonization. And that's the portfolio of motivation that we need to address, including economic sense for the country, some kind of trade-off perspective over time, so the innovation that will bring cost further down. Also, of course, local pollution, local development, renewables, availability, etc. So having said that, under your question of energy planning, I would like to emphasize that when you look at the opportunities that are there for different types of allocation of electricity, green electricity, right? We need to consider that the scale is very important. And here is where the green hydrogen can play a role. So you can use that as a setting the amount of capacity for renewables that would also bring development in such regions. And the hydrogen project could add to that. So I think that's probably one important goal. When you do the energy planning at the local level, consider that as one additional load that will be there, but bring the perspective of the develop in the region.
Thank you, Ricardo. I need to go quickly because we are running out of time. And I can ask you to keep it short. In terms of regulation, grandfathering standards, and so on, Simran, how do you see what should be done in order to accelerate the development of the green hydrogen sector? Very short, please.
At GH2, we have a green hydrogen standard. I'm not a technical expert on it, but maybe I can quickly say that in the emerging markets, enthusiasm is there. What they need is credibility and confidence. And that kind of comes from I would just very quickly, Ali, talk about three things: transparency, traceability, and then maybe come to grandfathering. So each of these early negotiations that are happening, they need more and more details about the emissions, the system boundaries, and these are already in play when the emerging economy projects are talking with, say, to the export markets or even with their domestic offtakes. The second one is traceability. When we talk about fertilizer, or they want to know, even when the offtake deal is not signed, but they want to know where this will be going, and they want to trace the guarantee of origin for these projects. We do have something in Africa that we work with. It's called Africa Green Product Initiative, and there we are kind of trying to put this into picture. And to come to grandfathering, I think it's very important, not just at the beginning, but what if it's there now? You can't keep doing stop and then restart and then do that again. If it's in picture now, we need to save these early movers from the changes that might happen in the later stages, and these are long-term projects. At GH2, we're working, I would say, with the European Commission, several letters sent together with these developers on what they want, how they want to be saved. So we're already working on that. And also going a little bit beyond, sorry, this would be the last thing. We are also working on green ammonia. So we have a green ammonia standard. Tomorrow at the Australia Pavilion, we're also launching green iron principles. So very sectoral specific standards and principles as well.
So without transition, I move to the last point from Riyadh. Would you like to add something about how UNDP is helping the countries to mobilize concessional financing and blend financing? You have 1 minute, 50 seconds before time is
1
out.
minute,
and
50
moving
seconds.
to the
Oh my
remark.
God. It's very short. So let me be very clear. The real challenge
I was not
in
good
finance,
in keeping the time.
of course, the real challenge in financing green hydrogen is not the capital. It is, for me, the inclusion. And this is, we need to think differently. Today, hydrogen push is being driven primarily by demand from high-income countries, which are defining the investment pipeline, trade routes, and technical standards. So green hydrogen is still relatively expensive, costing between $4.5 and $12 per kilogram, 2 to 3 times more than gray hydrogen. This is why concessional finance and blended vehicle are flowing rapidly into early stage projects, particularly from donors seeking clean fuel import by the end of the decade. But concessional finance alone does not guarantee shared prosperity. Without strong safeguards, it can unintentionally reinforce unequal development pathway and add pressure on already fragile ecosystem, as we said it. So hydrogen production, it is a resource intensive. It just shapes how financing is structured. You know that 70% of planned global electrolyzer capacity is located in water-stressed countries? This is not acceptable. Producing 2 million tons of hydrogen, as envisioned in some African export hub, could require more than 18 million cubic meters of fresh water every year. This is equivalent of big countries. This is why concessional and blended finance must be designed not only to de-risk investment, but to de-risk societies. Financing frameworks must reward countries, not just producing hydrogen, but for doing so in a way that protects water resources, reinforce biodiversity, expand energy access, and create meaningful opportunities for local workers and businesses. So where governments have taken proactive steps, the potential is already visible. India, we discussed it before. It aims to produce 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030, while creating 500,000 jobs and enabling 125 gigawatts of new renewable energy capacity. Chile expects more than 100,000 jobs across hydrogen value chain. But these opportunities are real, but only if the domestic private sector, skills institutions, and local communities are full part of this transition. So ensuring this attention, we need 3 areas to focus. First, an environmental integrity. Second, a social equity. And third, a local value creation. So across Africa, Asia, Pacific, Latin America, UNDP is working with government to strengthen regulations, build negotiation capacities, and improve permitting system, designing fiscal instrument, and craft hydrogen investment guidelines that place people and ecosystem at the center. In Bhutan, for example, our focus is really ensuring that any hydrogen opportunity align with the country's deep commitment to forest protection and environmental grounded development. Let me close with a simple question. If hydrogen uses local land, local sun, colleagues, local water, should it not also generate local prosperity? This is a true test of concessional and blended finance. Its success will ultimately be measured not only in megawatt and tons, but it whether enable a just, inclusive, and sustainable transition. Thank you, and I tried really to be really fast.
I thank you. I thank all the panelists for the very insightful comments and words. And thank you also for your last question, because it helps to move to Stefano Marguccio, who is the Deputy Chief CEO of the SEforALL, and then maybe he can pick up your question and add more comments about the outcomes and the takeaways of the brief, how we can move forward rapidly with green hydrogen development, developing the market, lowering the cost, and make it a real alternative to fossil fuels. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I was very happy to be able to listen to these conversations. I think they've been very interesting, and Riyadh, I'm sorry you're not here. You did a great job. On the one hand, what I think is, let's see what happens in Belém, right? I think a lot of the future of hydrogen will be dictated by the new round of NDCs, because somehow I've been in this energy space for a while, and I see like there are fashions. Like sometimes there is a topic that becomes the topic, and then suddenly this topic disappears after 2 years, and then it goes under the water and then reappears 4 years after, like, oh, the cutting edge of the future. So there has been some policy confusions, I would say. And at the same time, a lot is moving. We heard it. For sure, the fuel part is probably the most interesting one, I would say, because there is a strong alignment of aviation industry, and not only to tap into that potential. I was listening here during the days of COP how there is Picard, I don't know if you know the guy, he was going around the world with a solar-powered airplane a few years ago. And now he's trying to set up a hydrogen-fueled airplane. And he was telling us, well, the difference is that in order to do the tour of the world on a solar-powered plane, I had to stop 16 times. And I plan to do this in one go. So 9 days of flight on this thing. I don't know how we will survive physically, but anyhow, I think this gives the potential of this kind of fuel, and it's really helping the dream, right? Because what we are doing now is imagining a society that is totally different, where this fuel is playing a big role. And we've never succeeded, right? We only use it to launch missiles in the space so far. So I think that the conversation has been amazing. As I said, looking at the future, I think there is a lot that Belém will tell us about this sector, and I really hope it's good news, because I think there is a great potential. Now I have to stick to my notes, because we are also trying to do something together with the Council of Engineers for Energy Transition. We created this Green Hydrogen Task Force that was launched last year under one of the energy compacts, the 24/7 Carbon-Free Energy Compact, which is an initiative of the United Nations. And over the past year, we have worked with the experts to understand where the real bottlenecks are on technology, financing, supply chains, a lot of what has been discussed today, in order to accelerate the deployment in the Global South. I think in this, Riyadh has been a great advocate of, well, this shouldn't be just another raw material that is shipped somewhere, right? It should be a driver for development. Through the task force, we have seen that progress is possible where technical expertise meets policy ambition and financial innovation. We believe that 24/7 carbon-free energy is not a distant vision. It's a pathway to ensure that every hour of everyday energy system work for both people and planet. Another nice takeaway of COP was to see how electrification can save us so much money, right? Because it's so much more efficient in the use of the energy that you produce. So I would like to emphasize that we are just beginning to work on this topic. We look ahead to 2026. Sustainable Energy for All will be taking its work forward through a new Green Hydrogen Compact, which will build on the task force findings and serve as a dedicated platform for coordinated action, mobilization, partnership building to unlock green hydrogen progress. So we invite you all who are present here today, also virtually, to join us so that we can shape policy, investment, technologies, and design the next generation of projects. So that together we can ensure that green hydrogen becomes not just a fuel for decarbonization, but a driver of shared prosperity and a cornerstone of just and inclusive energy transition. And I think it's time to launch. Thank you.
Can you come with us for the picture? And please give me 1 minute, because I would like to recognize all the support and the work coming from the SEforALL, but also from the CEET colleagues. So I don't like to mention names because you always forget someone. But for example, Divya Sakshi from SEforALL, thank you, Liz, who I invite to come to the stairs with us for the picture. Also, Isaac, and mainly Bruno, who is the co-lead of the Green Hydrogen Task Force, and all the contributors. Thank you very much for all the work, and looking forward to continuing the implementation of the recommendations with you all. Thank you.